Hello everyone, my name is Andrew. Today we continue learning Python and today we'll talk about encapsulation in Python object-oriented programming. So let's start. But before we start that video, I want to recommend you my new course on database choice. Database choice is very important in all stages of development, and if you don't pick the product that fits, then basically you have a lot of problems in the future, in the present, and even in the past. So yeah, if you, your dog, your family, your relatives, your co-workers, your classmates want to pick the best database for their specific project, then just go to my course and I will see you there. Once again, today we'll talk about encapsulation in Python and let's just start. So in one of the previous videos, I explained what are static methods, what are class methods and all that stuff, but encapsulation is far more important than all of those. Because encapsulation allows you to protect your classes and protect your code from other people. So imagine that we have class human. And of course, those are the questions that we are going to answer. So what is encapsulation? Let's answer that first. So imagine that we have class human and that human has age variable inside of it. And what we can do is create our object and then human.age equals 10. So everything is normal here. Human.age. Let's run our code and we'll see 10 as the result. So 10 is the age of our person and everything is fine. However, what I can do is put -10 and that's just unlogical, so we can't do that. We can have -10 as our age. And those examples are the things when you need encapsulation in object-oriented programming. So basically, what do we do with encapsulation? Encapsulation allows us to protect our variables, methods, objects from the outer world. So imagine that instead of changing human.age as -10, like imagine that I can't do that. So I can just change age to any number that I want. So age is somehow protected by the class. And encapsulation basically means that you can only change some variables in the class scope. So in the class scope, but not in the outer scope. That is very important because there are a lot of rules that we need to follow when we create our classes. So age is just one of the examples. What if you have division in your classes and you don't want to divide by 0? So something like that. And encapsulation allows us to protect our variables. So once again, encapsulation is a method of protecting our variables in our classes so that only the class itself or other designated objects, classes, and functions can change the variable or the function inside of that class. Okay, what are the issues with Python and how can we create it? So in other programming languages like C++, for example, what do we have is, let me create a class, something like class. Let me create a human. So class human, imagine that that's a C++. And what do we have is public, something like int a equals 1 and so on. So there are 3 types of variables that we are gonna discuss today. The first one is public. So public variable is the variable, let me just create public, change everywhere. So you can change that public variable everywhere. So public variable is just a normal variable that you created before that. So age is a public variable right now because I can change it to whatever I want, whenever I want, and wherever I want. Also, there is a private variable, private. So private variable allows you to protect the object. So private scope allows you to protect the variable from the outer world, and you can only change only in the class. And yeah, that's kind of it. Change only in the class. And also there is a protected variable. So protected variable, which can be changed. Change only in the class and ancestors and children. So once again, public variable is the variable that you can change everywhere. Private variable is the variable that you can only change in the class itself. So in our case, the variable age, if it's a private variable, it will only be able to for edit inside of our human class. And protected variable is the variable that you can only change in the class itself, so in human and the children of that human class. So for example, if I have class man, which inherits from human, I can change that age variable to something here if it's a protected variable, but if it's a private variable, I cannot do that. So that is the whole idea of those, not scopes, but types of variables. And now yeah, C++ example is not that great. I just can explain it with those comments, but yeah, let's create those variables in Python. And what are the issues with Python? Well, basically, every variable in Python is a public variable. So you can create private and protected variables, and I'll show you how to do that, but you still can change with some manipulations. You can change protected and private variables on the outer scopes of your code. So there is no like real private and protected variables, because if we're talking about C++, C#, Java, or any other language with object-oriented programming, well, almost any other language, we really have private and protected variables that cannot be changed in like almost any way. Of course, we can do it, and there are some methods, but we can't change them as easily as we can do it in Python, and that is the most important thing. So every variable is a public one, and you need to understand that. Okay, so we have class human with age 0. Now let's create our private variable, because age 0 is a public variable. We can change it whenever we want, so public is just age. Let me just move it somewhere here. Okay, so we have public variable. What do we also have is our private variable. So private variable, or let's start with protected variable, because yeah, protected variable. What is that? Protected variable is a variable age equals 0, but instead of just writing the name of the variable, we append, or pre-append in that case, an underscore before the name of the variable. So that is a protected variable. What we did here, once again, is we just appended or pre-appended, so added an underscore at the start of our variable. So we just change in class and children, class children, like that, so we can see the whole text. Okay, class and children. You can only change protected variables in class and children. So the only thing that you need to do if you want to create a protected variable is add an underscore before the name. And now, if I will try to change human.age as 10, well, nothing is here, but let me remove that. If I try to access human.age, I don't know why I don't have the pop-up here, but as you can see, my human.age code is being highlighted, and it says access to a protected member age of a class. So that means that we cannot access it in any way. So 17th and 18th lines are wrong, because you can't access your protected variable in the outer scopes of your class. So I don't know why I don't have that highlight here, but both of those are wrong. So protected variable can only be changed inside of a class. So for example, what we can do is define change age protected, something like that. Change age protected, self value, and then we can say self age equals value. So that is perfectly normal. Why? Because we access that underscore age variable, so protected age, inside of our class. So that is normal, and you can do that, but never do that in the outer scopes of your class. And also you can change that age variable in the children of that class. Okay, but private variable is a little bit different, because we can only change it in the class itself. But what we need to do is age0 double underscore, or sorry, double underscore, like that. So double underscore means private, one underscore means protected, no underscore means public variable. And those are the rules created by the programmers, and yeah, that's kind of just it. So if you want to create a private variable, you need to put double underscore before the name of the variable. If you want to create a protected, one underscore before the name, and age or public variable age just goes without any underscores at all. Okay, so age here, age here. What is the difference? The difference is that if I do human.age as 10, I still can change it. So that protected variable does not force me to really or does not really hide the age variable from the outer scope. So I can still change that age variable. However, let's do an experiment. I'll set our private age variable as 10, and then let me say human dot age equals 20, for example, and then I'll call human age. So as you can see, it says that unresolved attribute age. Well, maybe that's just a bug, but let's run our code. As you can see, we received 20, and everything should be fine. So okay, so we can still change protected variables, we can still change private variables. What is the problem? Well, actually, we can change protected variables. So if I change protected variable, everything, yeah, I can just change it. It's not, you can't do that, but if you really want, you can. So just write human dot underscore age equals to 20 30 to whatever, and you will change the protected variable. However, you can't change private variables on the outer scopes of your objects. And why is that? Because that human.h variable is not the same as it is right here. And you may say, why? Because we have the same name, so h here, h here. Well, actually, it's not the same. Let me just show it to you with dir from human. So what I did here, I created dir.human shows you every function and every variable of your object. What I did here, I have three variables: normal h, public h, so public h, protected h, and private h. Then I'm saying that I create an object. I'm saying that private h should be 20, then protected h should be minus 30, and let's look at the results. We should have three variables, so I did not create any new variables, but that's what it may seem, because actually we have four variables in our class right now. So as you can see here, we have h, so protected h, public h, and here we have our private h. But actually it's not a private h, it's the h which was created on the 17th line. And here is our private h. So as you can see, we have four variables. And why is that? Because when we put double underscores, we don't just say that, okay, that variable is private. We are signaling to Python that we need to rename that variable so it can't really be accessed from the outer scopes. So as you can see, human h, and that is another variable, because if I do it like that, so human, then underscore human, double underscore h, and I run it, as you can see, I receive 10, even though I put h as 20, because those are two different variables. Once again, why? Because private variables in Python are renamed. So whenever you have a variable like that, you just put human here. That is all it is. So yeah, kind of like that. Okay, so h is, or private variables are always renamed whenever we work with them in Python. Protected variables are not renamed, but you should never change them like that. So that is wrong. And that is also wrong. So never do that. And never access those variables. So those protected and private variables should never be or functions, because we can do the same with functions. So for example, define ABC, something like that. You really can't change or access at all. You can't really access the variables at all, because that is wrong. That is like, yeah, private and protected variables should not be accessed from the outer scopes, and never do that. Just never read the values, never set the values, never do anything. And that is the issue with the Python. But there is one problem. Okay, how to apply it? So we have our h variable here, we have our h variable here. If I can only change my public variables, why do I need my private and protected variables? How do I change them? So actually there is a simple solution. What you can have is setter and getter for your variable. So let me remove my, let me just have my protected h as my example. So my protected h will be the only variable in my human. And what I can do, instead of just using human dot underscore h, because that is forbidden, what I can do instead of that is just use define set h like that, and then define get h like that. So those two functions are called setters and getters. So setter and getter. I think you already know what is the difference. Set function sets the h, so aside from self we also need to put value here, and get h gets the h. So the only thing that we need to do in the get function is return the h of our variable, or return the variable itself. So in our case it will be our h. So what we can do, instead of using human.h as 10, we can say human.setH as 20, for example. And in setH itself, what we can do is self h equals value. That is perfectly normal, because now we access our protected variable from within the class. And also what we can do is use if value is, let me say, less or equal to 0, then raise value error. So if our value is invalid, so as I said, if we put minus 20 here, we'll receive an error, value error. that is perfectly fine. If I put 20 here, as you can see, nothing changed, so we don't have any errors. And that is the power of setters. So setter is a function that is used to set your variable, and getter just returns you the variable. You may somehow change your variable if you want to. For example, you can say age equals to something, but I would just return the variable itself. So self age. Let's run it, and yeah, let's not just run it, but let's print our human.get age. Let's run it. You can see 20. So that's just that simple. So 30, and those are setters and getters. And setters and getters are used widely in other programming languages, so all that stuff is used in other programming languages. Of course, the private, protected, and other notations change, but the sense itself stays the same. However, what I have to say is that whenever you talk about Python, you don't really want to use setters and getters, because imagine writing human set age 30, human get age, instead of just using age equals or human.age to get the age. That is not just the best way to do it. But if you really need those checks, those setters, getters, and all that stuff, what you can do is use properties. And I explained properties in my other video, so go watch it. And yeah, that is kind of the end for that lesson. So today we're talking about encapsulation in object-oriented programming. It's a very, very important topic. In Python, it may be omitted, but for other programming languages and for you to understand the whole concept of object-oriented programming, it's very, very important. So that is why you always need to think about protection, encapsulation, private or privacy of your variables, and just think about all those things. So thank you for watching. Now go watch the video with properties, and I'll explain why set age, get age are much worse than they may seem, and much worse in Python. So thank you for watching. My name is Andrew. Subscribe to my channel, leave a like, leave a comment, and good luck.